Again, Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all of you. I am Dr. Nadira binti Darus. So today I will continue the second half of our subject, which is project planning and scheduling, MKAM 1053 for section 01. Okay. So the first half of this class have been covered by Mr. Rahim. So the rest of the topic I will continue. Okay. Okay, for the first class, which is for my part, we will continue or we will cover on project resource planning. Okay, so later on I will show you the list of the topics and also assessment for my part. Okay, so that all of us have a clear view about the rest of the topic and the assessment that need to be done.
Hello. சொல்லுங்க நிறைய பேர் இருக்கீங்க.
Sorry, Satish.
எங்க இருக்கீங்க?
Okay, so I think, all right. So now let us proceed with to this topic. Okay. All right. So before that, I would like to share with all of you some quick check on the topics and also assessment. Okay. So basically for the topics under my part, we have 5 main topics starting from today. We have project resource planning until project delay analysis. Okay. Okay, this is the first week for my part, week 9, and then I'm trying to cover until week 13. Okay, to finish up all these topics. Okay, about the assessment, I think Mr. Rahim already mentioned about this. So the total of 100% marks will be divided into 2 parts. Okay, so there will be 50% each for me and also for Mr. Rahim parts. So I will cover this the rest of these 50 marks. Okay, so the distribution of these 50 marks will be divided or will be breakdown into these 4 elements. Okay, the first one we will have individual assignment. We need that individual assignment 2. So this number 2 represent for my part, and then also similars go to group project, and then we have test 2, and at the end we will have final examination. Okay, so the breakdown of the marks for each of this assessment for the what we call for the continuous assessment, we have a total of 30%, and then for final exam I will cover 20% for my topics. Okay, basically based on these 5 main topics. Okay, so any what we call any changes or any minor amendment to this assessment planning, I will notify all of you either through WhatsApp group or e-learning. Okay. For your information or for your reminder, I will upload all the lecture materials, lecture notes, and also video recording through e-learning. Okay, later on after the class, all of you may refer to the e-learning to access all of these lecture materials, and also any question or any assignment, you can refer to the e-learning. Okay, so hopefully all of you can access e-learning for the details for our topic, okay, for our class. All right, so far all of you, do you have any question regarding the topics and also assessment before we proceed with the first topic? Okay.
No, Doctor.
No. So is everything clear so far? All right.
Yes, Doctor.
All right. Okay. So I think we can proceed to the first topic. Okay, for the first topic, this is the several topic outlines which consists of overview or introduction part of what actually a project resources here. And then I will cover on the related resource problem, any potential problem related to the resources we try to cover or we try to look at on the issues. And then I will also share with all of you example of actual project, meaning that their planning, their resource planning on the manpower and also on the machineries, okay, how they plan, how they prepare the schedule. And then the next one we will cover on the resource planning itself, which is specifically focusing on the resource smoothing and also resource leveling. So we try to cover all of these subtopics for today's class, okay, which is for the topic of project resource planning, okay. All right. As an introduction or overview for this topic, I would like to share with all of you about the types of project resources and also project objective. So for this part, I'm sure that all of you are quite familiar with this. So I just would like to just share a brief sharing for this so that all of us can recall, all of us can refresh, okay, regarding the project resources. Since this is the main item for our topic, for our first topic, okay. So if we look at here, we have main project objective such as cost, time, and scope. So in any project or in any development, regardless the detail of the project, we need to have a clear objective for the project itself. Okay. So these three elements, cost, time, and scope, are the basic objective that needs to be fulfilled or that needs to be made by the person in charge in order to deliver the project well. Okay. So apart from these three main objectives, we have sub-objective or sub-requirement that need to be considered in delivering the project. Okay, for example, we need to consider the issues on quality and then safety and health. And the other thing, we need to consider the environmental compliance, meaning that we need to uh, take into consideration any environmental requirement, any environmental consideration for our project to be constructed or to be delivered. Okay. For example, safety and health, we need to comply to the requirements so that we try to avoid any accident on site, okay, any problems related to the safety and health, okay. So that's why we need to fulfill all the requirement for the safety and health. Similar, go to environmental compliance, which can be divided into, for example, we have pollution issues such as air pollution, noise pollution, okay. So that one we need to comply to the requirement so that we can deliver the project well without any penalty, without any delay, okay. We try to take into consideration all of these needs or requirement by the local authorities or any respected parties, okay. Okay, that's regarding the project objective. In order for us to deliver the project, in order for us to construct the project, for sure we need the resources. Okay, that's why project resources planning is the main, one of the main, what we call criteria that we need to plan, that we need to manage, because without resources, it is quite impossible for us to deliver the project or to construct the project. Okay. Okay, here I'm also sure that all of you already familiar with this. Okay, there were basic resources for any project, for any construction, or other types of project development. Okay, we need to have or we require 5M. Alright. So basically 5M refers to the manpower, machinery, and also we have material, method, and also money. So that's why we have 5M here. Okay, manpower, or the other term we can refer it to the labor requirement. So without manpower or without workforce, the what we call the project can be delivered well ataupun can be constructed. Okay. And of course, we require the plant and machineries in order for us to construct the project, in order for us to carry out any construction activities. So we require this manpower, machinery, and also the other important resources. We need to have material. Okay, for example, we need to have cement. We need to have sand and any other materials such as what we call other structural component. Okay. So for now, we have various construction materials for the project itself. Okay. So that one will be the main resources for the project. Similar, let's go to the method, which is refers to how we construct the method, how we construct the project or specific construction activities. Okay, how we conduct or how, what is the procedure. So that's referring to the method. And of course, in order for us to do the project, in order for us to construct the project, we need to have fund ataupun money here. We need to have the capital. Okay, so in overall, there are what we call, there are several types of project resources or the main resources that we need for our project, for our construction. Okay, so all of you just remember this 5M so that it is easier for you to recall back and for you to remember the main component for the project resources. Okay, okay, all of you so far. Okay. All right. So one more thing, during my class, if you have any question, if you have any additional information or experience to share during the class, you are welcome to do so. Maybe some of you already have experience working in the industry, or you have you have done your practical training previously. So anything related to our topic you may share, or any query you may ask me. Okay, so that during our class we will have discussion. Okay, all right, so that's regarding the overview for project resources, which is focusing on the types of project resources. All right, so the other thing is that this is the related to the resource management, which is specifically focusing on the labor or manpower. All right, planning or managing resources in terms of labor, it's actually an important aspect which is requires serious consideration during the project development, and proper management are really needed because we need to ensure the project success. Okay, as I mentioned previously, uh, we uh, we need the manpower, we need the labor to carry out the works, to construct the works. Okay, that's why it is very vital for us to take serious consideration for the labor management and proper management for the specific labor. Okay, because improper management can cause several potential problems, especially during the construction stage. For example, okay, if we don't have any sufficient numbers of labor to do the works, so during the construction stage, for sure, it will affect the progress of work, and it will affect the what we call the planning and scheduling of the specific task. So later on, that one will cause the delay issues. Okay. So above all, if we don't have proper management at the end, it will cause a project delay. So that's the main, what we call the main problems that we try to avoid, we try to reduce. Okay, as we know, delay is quite an what we call a big issue. Okay, in construction industry or any project development. So that one we try to avoid. So in order to avoid that kind of that kind of problem, we try to have proper management, proper planning regarding the project resources. Okay, so basically, resource planning or resource management costs make up about 20 to 30% of the total construction cost. Okay, that's the distribution for the costing for the resource costing. And the other thing is that for the resource management, it involves several key activities such as planning, organizing, monitoring, and controlling. Okay, so we need to plan at the first place. We need to plan what type of manpower, what type of material or machineries that we need for the specific tasks or activities, and then we need to organize the usage. We need to organize the schedule so that the what we call the number or the capacity of the resources will meet the requirement, okay, at specific time. And later on, we need to monitor and also control each of the activities so that we are always on track in order for us to avoid any delay issues. Okay, so that's the overview for the project resources, which is focusing on the labor requirement. All right, and then the next one, I think we move to the next subtopic. All right. So just now I have shared regarding the overview or introduction for the project resources, and then we try to look at on the related resource problem. Okay, for the second part, for the second subtopic. All right, related resource problems. For the first one, we will look at on the manpower or labor requirement. Okay, so basically, there are several issues or several problem related to the resource, especially for the manpower. Okay, here I have summarized some of the factors or some of the potential problems related to the manpower. Okay, for sure, from other resources, from other reference, you may you may find any other or any what we call potential problems or issues. If you read the journals or you read the books, okay, you may obtain more information regarding this related resource problem. However, for this I have summarized into six categories or into six factors. Okay, for the first one, we have uh, problems related to the shortage. Okay, shortage of the or the labor itself is basically mostly due to the poor planning, absenteeism, or strike by the workers. So, shortage of the resources, labor, for sure will affect the progress of work and will affect the plan or the schedule for the specific task. Okay, because for example, we want to do the concrete works, okay, concreting. If we don't have the what we call the sufficient number of labor, so for sure can be done. Okay, we don't have enough workforce, we don't have enough labor to complete. So at the end, this will resulted in delay. So shortage of the workers, shortage of the labor, we need to avoid this kind of problems. Okay. The other factor or the other problems related to the resource is unreliable subcontractor. Okay, so for some activities or some works that need to be constructed, the main contractor will sub the works to the subcontractors, especially in terms of the expertise and also in terms of specialization. So the main contractor need to appoint the subcontractor to deliver the works or to do the what we call specific tasks. So if the main contractor unable to appoint an or a reliable subcon, so that one will also cause the problem. So at the end, it will also lead to shortage. Okay, so this is the other important factors that we need to look at, we need to consider. Okay. So that all of this will not affect our planning, will not affect our management for the resources. Okay. So the other factor, the third one is post supervision. Post supervision by the respected supervisor will also lead to the uh, problems related to the resources. Okay. Especially the labor. So the general level usually will have the leader, or we can call them as supervisor. So the supervisor need to have good experience, need to have expertise in their work so that they can supervise the workers in a good ways, and also it will avoid any potential problems related to the manpower or the resources for the specific project. Okay. So the other thing, lack of supervisor also cause the will affect the what we call resource management or resource planning. Okay, especially for the manpower. All right. So far we have three factors. Apart from that, we also have potential problems related to the resources, such as inappropriate monitoring and controlling, slow mobilization, and also unskilled labor. So all of this also will affect the resource planning, so that we need to consider all of these issues, all of these problems. At the end, we can come up with a good project deliverables, and also we try to deliver the works based on the what we call based on the given duration or completion period, and then with a good quality, and also according to the specification and also design requirement. Okay, so that's why we need to consider all of these potential problems, so that it will not affect the resource planning and also management. Okay, for all of you, you may refer to any other reference or journals, reference book, so that you can obtain more information regarding these related resource problems, because I'm sure that our what we call up until now, there are various studies have covered on the resource management or resource planning. Okay, so we can try you can try do your own study, do your own revision, so that you can gather all additional information, okay, related to this topic and also to the subtopic. Okay, so that's the related resource problem for the manpower. And then, okay, there is some other information for this. All right, as a continuation for the previous one, some of these, I think it is being mentioned just now. Okay, shortage of the labor may interrupt work progress. Okay, betul. Where it is vital to be resolved at early stage. Okay, so as I mentioned, or as discussed just now, labor shortage may interrupt the work progress. So that will need to be resolved, need to be solved at the early stage. So throughout the construction activities, throughout the construction progress, this kind of problem will not hinder the progress of work. Okay. And then poor planning of resources can be contributing factors of shortage issue. Okay, that one we already covered just now. All right. Other main factors can be improved and rectified, but can be costly. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are several other sub factors that contributes to the resource problem. So some of the factors can be improved and some of them need improvement, however, require the cost or require the money. Alright, so at the end, resource planning is essential to avoid and reduce problem related to labor or any other resources. Okay, so that's why we are going to cover this today's topic, project resource planning, so that we try to avoid any potential problem. Alright. Okay, the next one, we also have some what we call some issues or some related or potential problem related to the machinery and equipment. Okay, similar to the previous one, problem related to the manpower. Okay, for the machinery and equipment or construction plant, there are several factors that lead to the resources problem, such as shortage, we have breakdown, inefficient of the operation, unavailability, and stolen. Okay, all of these issues need to be avoided, and we try to control, so that we try to manage so that all of these do not occur, so that at the end we can make sure that we have a sufficient capacity of the plant and machineries to construct the work, to carry out all the necessary activities. Okay, for the machinery shortage, usually it is due to the unplanned or concurrent activities. Okay, so that's why we need to have good planning of the machinery use, so that at certain time we once we need the machinery itself is available to be used. Okay, similar goes to the concurrent activities. Okay, as we know that concurrent activities require the machinery or the works to be done simultaneously. So this is where we need to have proper planning for the machinery usage. Okay, the other factor related to the breakdown or where the machinery or the equipment out of service. Okay, most of the time it is due to maintenance or overusage. Okay, so in order to cater this problem, we need to have a schedule for the frequent maintenance of the machinery and equipment. Okay, so that the equipment will be always well maintained. Okay, they are ready to be used, or they are available to be used at any time that the works need to be done. Okay. Okay, the other factor is related to inefficiency, related to the unskilled operation or uneconomic age of the machinery itself, and then unavailability related to the unaware of the market availability. Okay, this is related to the what we call how we want to obtain the machinery for the specific task. Okay, we need to know the market availability and also need to know their requisition. Okay, and the most important thing related to the security and safety issues. Okay, security, mostly at the construction site, we need to secure the site with the hoarding, with the most of the site we have the guard post. Okay, so the main function is that to protect the site and also to protect all of the items inside the site, for including the machinery, including the material required for the project. So we try to avoid all of this in order to ensure a good resource planning and management. Okay. All right. So I think that's all for the related resource problem. All right. So far, are you okay, everyone? Are you still there? All right. So as I mentioned just now previously, if you have anything to clarify or anything to ask, you may do so. Okay, you may interrupt me during the class. Okay. All right. So the next one, I'll share with all of you some example project scheduling or planning regarding the resource. Okay. All right. This is the example of construction program, or sometimes we call it as work program. Okay. Okay, for this we have and this is just a simple program. So I'm sure that all of you already familiar with this kind of bar chart or Gantt chart. Okay, so here we have the item number and also works description, and on the right side we have the duration for each of these work activities. Right? So basically, this is the main component or the main item for the project planning and scheduling, so that we have a clear schedule or a clear uh, reference to be referred. Okay, so that we can monitor the project progress. We can what we call controls any activities. If we notice the delay for any specific task, okay, we can do the what we can do the adjustment to the schedule. Okay, instantly, so that it will not affect the whole progress of work. Okay, so that's why it is very important for us to have a good Gantt chart or this budget. All right. Okay, so this is just an example for the construction work program. Okay, the next one. All right, this is the schedule for the manpower allocation or labor allocation. Okay. All right. So here we have on the left side we have based on this work program. This is the overall program, and then we have this specific schedule for the labor requirement for each of the activities here, each of the works that needs to be done. All right, so we need to list out of all of the required activities, and for sure we need to have the duration and also the number of what we call the number of the labor required for each of the activities. Okay, for example, we have structural works. We require carpenters, barbenders, and also concreters. So we need to list out all the required works and the required labor for this specific works. And we need to allocate the specific number in order for us to have a good view and to have a proper planning for each of the labor to conduct the works accordingly, okay, according to the specific period or the duration. Okay, so by having this what we call this schedule, so any changes or anything that interrupt the plan, the respected parties or the project planner can update this kind of the schedule, and at the end they can try to avoid any big issues, especially the delay for the whole project. Okay, so this is the example for manpower schedule. And then we have Sorry, the next one. Similar to the previous one, this is the schedule for the machinery and equipment requirement. Okay, so on the left side, we have the list of equipment or the required equipment for the project or for the activities that need to be done. And we need to allocate each of the, what we call each of the period with the number of the machinery that we need at this specific period. Okay. So for example, for the first month of or the first year, so basically this monthly basis. So for the first month, we require 2 units of backhoe and then 2 units of concrete mixer and so on. So by having all of this summary, all of these data for the machinery and equipment, so it easier for the respected parties to monitor, to control any potential problems related to the machinery and equipment scheduling. Okay. And the other thing that I would like to show, all right, this one. Okay, so here we also have the forecast for, this is just an example, forecast of manpower requirement. So based on the previous table that I have shared just now, so we can plot the histogram or this bar chart, okay, so that we can know the allocation for each of the, for example, here we have manpower, the detailed allocation for the manpower according to the duration, which is this one for the monthly basis construction month. Okay, here we have the manpower for structural works and also architectural works. Okay, so this is where the project resource planning is very important, because we can forecast, we can plan, and we the other things that we can predict. Okay, if later on during the construction stage, if there are any problems, there are any changes, so the planner or the project planner are able to do the amendment, to do the updates to their schedule, so that they can deliver the works very well. Okay. All right, the next thing we have, all right, the next subtopic. So far we have covered up until here, example of actual project. The next one we have resource planning, which is specifically we will cover on the labor or manpower. All right, okay. So for your information, for the project resource planning, we have 2 main components that we need to understand, okay, in terms of its principle and also in terms of its calculation or the preparation for the, how we want to prepare the smoothing and leveling. Okay, so these two, the first one we have resource smoothing, and then we have the leveling. So these two are the main what we call item for resource planning. Okay, so I'm not sure. However, I think Mr. Rahim already mentioned about this. Okay, maybe in your Microsoft project software. Okay, we can do this smoothing and leveling using the software. All right. So what I want to share with all of you, that the difference between these two components. Okay, first one, we look at on the resource smoothing. Okay, for the resource smoothing, it is the refers, or it is related to the time limited. Okay, so smoothing, it is time limited or time driven. Okay, most of the practice or most of the project in Malaysia practice this resource smoothing for their project or construction industry. So by having this kind of resource smoothing, the planner need to estimate the labor requirement. Okay, since it is time limited. Okay, and it is quite vice versa, or in contrast with the resource leveling. where resource leveling is related to the resource limited. Okay, as compared to the resource smoothing, resource leveling is resource limited here, or resource driven. Resource driven, and this one time driven. Okay, we need to remember this so that it's easier for you to understand very well these two main items. Okay, for the resource leveling, it require resources that required resources will be planned to estimate the duration of particular works. Okay, so that the duration of the works will be depending on the required resources for each of the specific activities. Okay, later on I will show you some example, okay, so that we can understand more on this, right? All right. So the other thing regarding these two main components for the resource smoothing, it is basically for the fixed or limited contract duration, right? So there will be no problems or no issues of resource availability, since the main what we call the main item that we need to consider for this is time instead of resource. Okay, so time limitation. And then resource allocation must be smooth to avoid sudden labor reduction or addition. So that's why we need to do the resource smoothing. Okay. And then for the resource leveling, client permits delay in completion dates if the activities cannot be arranged within the float time. Okay. All right. So I'm sure that so far all of you already know what's actually is float time. All right, so for the resource leveling, meaning that you have some more space or some more extra duration where you can utilize this float time so that we can use this leveling, resource leveling, because the client may permit a delay in completion date. All right, and then basically it's related to the labor shortage issue. Okay, so that's why we need to do the leveling. For this kind of resource leveling, time is less important than resources. Okay, so what differentiate these two items is only time and resources, right? So we need to remember that. All right. Okay, we still have some information for these two. All right. This is more on the purpose or the function of resource smoothing and also resource leveling. Okay, for the resource smoothing, the first or the main purpose is to manage resource distribution over time. Okay, since it is time limited, so we need to manage resource distribution over the time. And we try to avoid peak and trough of the resource aggregation or resource allocation. So later on, I will show you the diagram or the figure to show this peak and also the trough of the labor allocation. Okay. And the other thing is that we do the resource smoothing in order to ensure resource availability within desired constraint at particular time. Okay. That's the main, what we call the main function or the main purpose of resource smoothing. Okay, and then for the resource leveling, the main purpose is to conduct the leveling if activities are planned according to the labor availability, right? So in overall, that's the difference, some difference between resource smoothing and resource leveling that we need to differentiate and that we need to remember so that it is easier for us to differentiate these two components, these two items. Okay. All right. So I think these three up to this. All right. Okay. So that's all the resource planning overview. Okay, so we have two types of planning, smoothing and leveling. So after this, I will share with all of you on the what we call example for each of these planning. both smoothing and also leveling. Okay. So before that, before we look at on the example or the calculation part, can we have short break, right? All right. So if all of you are okay with the short break, so we will continue again in, I think it's already 11. So maybe we have 10 minutes break. Okay. So we will continue at 11:10 a.m. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. See you later.
Thank you, Victor.
All right. So without further delay, we will continue to the rest of the subtopic for today's class. Okay. So now I would like to share with all of you the example for both resource smoothing and also resource leveling. Okay, so we first we will look at on this resource smoothing example, just a simple example. All right. For the first case, uh, related to the resource smoothing is basically the case for excessive peak and through. Okay. So peak and through, as we can see here that for the first figure, we have the before and after figure. Before figure, we can see that there are several peak here. Okay. Peak of the resource allocation. So the graph or the bar allocation, it's quite what we call unstable because there are several peak and through, and here we have through, meaning that sudden reduction and then sudden peak of the resource allocation. So the main purpose of the resource smoothing is to ensure the smooth intake of the resource, especially the labor. Okay, most of the time, the project planner would like to have a smooth resource planning for the manpower so that they can have what we call a good project progress, so that the manpower allocation are able to deliver or to construct the project very well. Okay, so we can bear in mind that for the resource modeling, we need to ensure that there will be a steady increase at the start. Okay, meaning that throughout the duration. So basically, based on this figure, again, here we have number of labor or labor allocation, number of labor. So bottom here we have the duration or the time, basically in monthly basis. Okay, so we want to ensure that there will be a steady increase at the start. So meaning that if we have the graph, we would like to have the allocation with the steady increase for the um, what we call for the labor or the resource allocation, okay, or resource planning. And then the other thing, we try to maintain during the progress so that the allocation of the labor will be maintained at a certain level or certain number of labor, and at the end it will be slowly discharged. Okay, so what the most important thing here is that we try to avoid any sudden increase or any sudden reduction of the resource allocation. Okay, so we can refer to the second or this bottom figure, which is refer to the after smoothing of the resources. We can see here that we have the steady increase of the resources, and then we try to maintain in the middle or throughout the progress, and at the end we have a slowly or slow discharge of the resource allocation. Okay, so that's why we try to do the smoothing so that we have the smooth allocation. Okay, The other thing is that the end result of smoothing process will not affect the overall duration. Okay. So, for example, based on this figure, the total duration of this, what we call of this project is 24 months or 2 years period. So we need to make sure that after the smoothing, we still have allocate the resources within this allocated or this limited duration. Okay, we can adjust the resource allocation. However, we need to ensure that the time is the same. Okay, so we don't have any delay, since we need to remember back that smoothing is more on time driven instead of resource driven, right? So we need to remember that. All right. Okay. So as we can see here that this the first figure show the resource aggregation, because we have some peaks, we have through, okay, that we need to avoid because the allocation is quite unstable. We have a sudden increase, we have sudden reduction for the allocation, which is not really uh, not really what we call efficient in terms of resource planning. Okay, so we try to convert this resource aggregation to a better organization or management of the resource. So that's why we do the resource smoothing. So we have a very smooth resource allocation on our right side here. Okay, so this one is preferable. Okay, we need to do the smoothing in order for us to obtain this kind of resource planning and also resource allocation. Okay, sometimes this resource aggregation or poor resource allocation is mainly will influence the moral of the construction workers. Okay, that's why we need to do the smoothing, because they need to work okay, for starting from here they need to work at a certain number, with a certain number of level, and then here it's still okay because there is an increase here, and up to here there will be uh, through or sudden reduction, and again they need to work again. Okay, so in terms of management, the workers itself, the worker themselves will be affected in terms of their motivation, in terms of their moral to do the works. Okay, so that's why we need to proper plan the workers so that they can deliver the works with a very apa, efficient time, efficient duration. Okay, and then this kind of resource aggregation or resource poor allocation, this poor resource allocation is due to the discontinuity or employment issue of the workers. Okay, so sometimes at the construction site or any specific construction project, due to the lack of workers, lack of manpower, they are basically due to the employment issue. So it is quite difficult for the contractor or for the planner to plan their resource very well, especially the workers. So we need to consider all of these potential issue so that we will come up with a better or proper resource planning. Okay, resource allocation. Okay. Okay, in order for us to do the resource smoothing, okay, there are these three steps that we need to conduct. First of all, we need to do what we need to do is to list all activities according to earliest start and total float, and then we need to do again list again all of the activities based on the late start and total float. Okay, so we have two main component here, ES and TF, okay, and then here we have LS and TF, right? And then at the same time we need to do the plot. Okay, we need to plot the resource aggregation graph according to ESTF and LSTF. So we this one, list all activities, is basically in table form. Okay, later on I will show you the example. And then once we have the activities in table form, we plot the graph, and at the end we need to compare both graphs and try to develop a preferred graph without true or excessive peak. Okay, all right. So the example, okay, this is the sample question 1 for resource smoothing. Okay, if we look at on this table 1, okay, this table 1 shows the labor requirements, while figure 1 present the network diagram for of a small project. So here we have the figure 1, and this is the table 1, which is the information provided for us to do the resource smoothing. Right. So based on this table, we have several simple activities, activity 1, activity 8, okay, with the number of labor for each of the activity. Okay, for example, activity 1 to 2, we have 3 number of labors. Okay, we can also check on this figure 1, network diagram 1 to 2. Okay, this number of labor, and this is the duration, basically what we call the plot for the what we call the duration of this project. All right. Okay, so based on these two information, the table 1 and also the figure 1 networking diagram, okay, network diagram, so we need to uh, do the first step, which is to list out all the activities. All right. So based on the previous information or given information, we can do the summary here with the combination of this table and also the network diagram. So activity and number of level, just extract from the given table. And then for the information of first step, we need to consider ES and TF. Okay. Right. So just extract all of the information based on this network and convert into this table as the first step. And then we just focus on the first one, which is ES and TF. Right. We have activity, ESTF, and number of labor. So based on this table or simplified table for the ES and TF, we draw the this one, the bar chart for, or histogram, we can call it as resource histogram. Okay, histogram for the first step. All right, which consider the ES and TF. Right, but we have here total labor, which is the number of labor here, number of labor. And then at the bottom part, we have the project duration. Okay, duration or time. Okay, so basically for this project, it is about, well, just now we have the, okay, the total duration for this project is 20. With the 20 days or 30 months, not an issue just right now. Okay, we just need to understand the how we want to extract the information and convert it into this kind of histogram. Okay, so again, you need to allocate all of these resource allocation based on the previous table. Okay. Once we do this first step, we notice that here we have some true, okay, true, and then slight peak here, okay, and again we have true at this what we call for these activities, and some peak over here. Okay, so based on this, histogram plotting, we can observe which activity that require the resource smoothing. Okay. Okay. Once we done with the first step, okay, the second step is, sorry, this one should be second step. We need to do the LS and TF. Sorry, LS and TF table summary. Okay, just extract the previous information to this table. However, the second one we consider the LS. Let's start. Okay, with the total float. Again, we try to prepare this histogram. So as we can see here that there is also some true here, okay, and peak for the resource allocation. All right. And once we have these two histogram, we can compare both, okay, ESTF and also LSTF, right? We can compare both, and then for sure we will choose the first one, ESNTF, for the smoothing, because the what we call the allocation of the resource is quite better as compared to the LSNTF, right? Okay, if we look at back here, okay. So this is the original ESTF. So once we do the smoothing, we can what we call reallocate the manpower for activity 2 to 4 to this what we call to this site, and then uh, and move this activity 3 to 7 over here. Okay, at the end, we can obtain this kind of resource smoothing histogram or graph. Okay, so the most important thing is that for the resource smoothing, you need to make sure that it will be finished or completed within the same time or the same duration, okay, which is 20 days. It is 1 days. All right. So again, back to the its principle that resource smoothing is time driven. Okay. So we need to make sure that we utilize or we allocate the resource within this limited days or limited period. Okay. So I think this that's all for the example for resource smoothing. Okay. So far, everyone quite clear on this? Okay. All right. So hopefully all of you will able to differentiate the resource smoothing and leveling, right? So it is easier for you to do your own smoothing and leveling. And also I think this one later on I will confirm whether it will be in your individual assignment or group. Okay. All right. So we have come to the almost the last part of our topic. Okay, so we will continue to the example of resource leveling. Just now we have covered our smoothing, and the next one will be the resource leveling. All right. As previously mentioned, resource leveling is more on resource constraint. Okay, case 2, which is resource constraint. As compared to resource smoothing, resource leveling is more on resource limited, okay, or resource driven. Okay, so as we can see here, this is just a simple histogram example. So before the leveling, there are some also true and peak for this. Okay, what we want to do here is that we want to level the resource allocation. So we try to convert into this form or into this histogram. Okay. So for the resource leveling, resources available within the desired limit or constraint at a particular time. So for example, at certain time, we have very limited numbers of the manpower or the machineries. So we try to level the usage or the allocation so that we are able to plan the work and to conduct the work accordingly. Okay. So we need to reallocate any work activities which require same resources to avoid overlapping, right? So that's the main purpose, or that's the main function for the resource leveling in terms of resource constraint, right? Okay. So there are several steps for leveling. Okay, just now we have covered on resource smoothing, which also have its own step that need to be done. Okay, for the leveling, first of all, we need to list all activities according to priority ESTF. If there are more activities with the same total float, then the duration of activity to be considered. Okay. Uh, for the second step, we need to plot resource aggregation graph according to ESNTF and limit the labor requirements so that we can try to avoid the overlapping of the what we call overlapping of the resource requirement at a specific time. Sorry, especially the manpower. Okay. So at the end, we can try to check because the completion date of the project will depend on the availability of the resources. Since it is not time limited, so there are certain cases or certain situation where the project duration will be extend because the client may permit certain delays according to the situation. Okay. All right. So this is the sample question 2 for resource leveling. Okay. For this, we can refer to figure 2 and also it given the table 2. Later on, I will show. This is table 2 and figure 2. All right. So figure 2 present the network diagram of a small project. Okay, the following table, later on I will show you, shows the labor requirements for each activity. So based on the table, here we can see gang A and gang B are limited to 8 and 6 workers respectively. Okay, this one, we have table 2, which specify the number of gang A and gang B. So gang A, the limitation are limited to 8 and 6 workers, right? So 8 and 6. All right, and other information. So what we need to do is that prepare resource allocation graph based on ES and TF and list the date of all activities based on the resource graph. Okay. So from here, based on table 2, based on figure 2, okay, here we have the network diagram again. For the sample question 2. So based on this, we try to extract, sorry, this one should be duration, pressure, and this one should be resource or number of labor. All right. Okay, so based on the all of the activities, we list the activities and also resource requirement. Okay, based on its duration too. Okay, so we have activity A to K. Okay, refer back to this, and then we need to summarize all the duration with the number of labor. All right. So based on that, we need to plot the graph, again the histogram. So as we can see here that activity A, what we call, we require 6 number of labor, and activity B, 8 numbers, and so on for the rest of the activities. what we want to do here is that we try to level this resource allocation. Okay. ESNTF, and then the next one. Okay, for the limit, if we limit to the what we call six number of label, so this we call here. All right. So activity. So we can see here that there are some changes here because the number of label now will be 6. However, we level the resources throughout the project. The other thing is that if we utilize all the total load for this project, so at the end, these 60 days will may be extended. Okay, can be 70 days or more. Okay, so that's the main difference between the smoothing, resource smoothing, and resource leveling. Okay, level, we want to level the resources because we try to avoid overlapping. Okay, any overlapping of the resource usage, we try to do the leveling. Okay, so that we don't have any what we call any shortage of the labor requirement. All right. So I think that's the sample. Okay. And then for the step 3, again, this one duration. This one is labor. Okay, for the step 3, we recalculate the what we call completion date. And then we need to update each of these what we call number of labor and also each of the duration for activities A to K. Okay. So you may try to look at back on this sample question and try to understand and try to differentiate both resource smoothing and resource leveling. Okay. So I think that's all for the example in the sample question. All right. So far, is everyone okay? Are everyone okay? Okay, we try to do the quick check. Okay, for today's class. All right. Okay, so hopefully all of you can grab the idea for this topic, which is on project resource planning. Okay, so before we end our class, okay, we do some quick recall or summary for today's topic. So any of you would like to recall about the resource smoothing and resource leveling? Just a simple, what we call simple point. Also okay for us to do the recall. Any volunteer?
Um, excuse me, Doctor. For me, I think resource smoothing is must be it must have the fixed duration, and during the fixed duration, the resources is unlimited. We just
Yeah.
make the resource smooth, and the quantity of the resource is similar unlimited.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Okay, so thanks Wu Hongxi for your response. Okay, so basically as mentioned by Wu Hongxi, we have a resource smoothing that quite different from resource leveling because it is related to the fixed duration because it is time limited. Okay, so that's the main what we call component or item for the resource smoothing that we need to remember. Okay, so it is easier for you to what we call to answer the question, to prepare the resource smoothing, as long as you can remember the main item or main component for resource smoothing, right? Okay, so how about resource leveling? The rest of you? Which is quite differ from resource smoothing. Okay.
The resources will be limited, but the time will not.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Leong, for your response and for your answer. Okay. So just now, Leong has mentioned that resource leveling, we focusing on the resource limited. Okay. Or resource constraint instead of the time. Okay. So we just need to remember here that for the resource smoothing, we will focus on the time itself, time limited, and then for the leveling, it will be resource limited. Okay. Both of these are the types of the resource planning. Okay. Depending on the situation, depending on the scope that requires us to plan the resource, we need to make sure that we use the proper or the correct planning method so that we have a proper resource allocation, right? So later on, I think if there are some additional information or additional reference, I will upload together with the notes, okay, for your reference. And at the same time, all of you can do your own revision, do your own self-study so that you can obtain more information for this topic. And if you have anything to ask and if you have anything that quite not clear, so you may ask me either through WhatsApp, through during the class, okay? Okay, you are welcome to do so. Okay, so I think that's all for our class, for today's class. All right, so all of you don't have no more question, okay, before we end our class. Okay, so far so good.
Doctor.
Okay, all right. So I think if all of you are quite what we call quite clear with the topic, so I think that's all for today. So before we end our class, let me share the QR code so that you need to scan the code for your attendance record. Okay. Okay, you may scan the attendance record before leave the session. Right? Okay.
Thank you,
Once
Doctor.
all right, once you have scanned this QR code, we may dismiss, okay, for today. Hope to see you, all of you, next week, okay?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Doctor.
All right, thank you for
Doctor.
all
Doctor.
right,
Thank you.
welcome. Assalamualaikum and good day.